Why? Because a rift in death's design.
For going into the woods again.
Make them remember me, Jason. Make them remember what fear tastes like.
Hypnosil. What does this shit do, anyway? How come we all have to take it?
Keeps you nice and docile while I kick your little ass.
Why won't you die?
Now, this Jason Voorhees supposedly drowned at Camp Crystal Lake back in 1957 when he was 11 years old. And the counselors weren't watching. Then they made the mistake of killing his mother. And the legend has it that Jason kept returning from his grave to punish whoever returned to the camp.
Hey, Jethro! This is a rave, not a Halloween party! Why don't you go find yourself a pig to fuck?
Yeah, invite only corn poke and you weren't invited.
Dude, that goalie was pissed about something.
That wasn't the guy in my dream. That was somebody else.
Who cares about some fucking dream guy, okay? Psycho on the hockey mask was real.
What kind of faggot runs around in a Christmas sweater?
Anything is possible now. God, you just don't get it.
Y'all two killers, we're not safe awake or asleep.
Hi, this is Russell Todd from Chopping Mall, He Knows You're Alone, and Friday the 13th Part 2, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, the very special Friday the 13th edition. And we are up to Freddy versus Jason, so the big smackdown between the two titans of horror. And that's not Susie and Toya, in case you're wondering. Yeah, we're going to have a double dose of Freddy because we're covering A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 on our next episode.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, sorry. Was that a spoiler?
Well, because we only announced it at the end usually.
Okay. Well, pretend you didn't hear that. We'll announce that at the end of the... this is the one with the big cockroach. The girl who turns to the cockroach, I think. So, anyway, we are back with this 2003 monster mashup. And so it's going to be an interesting one to have a chat about because... Well, yeah. Well, it's going to be... we'll see what we all think about it. And I'm sure we've got lots of interesting things to say. Haven't we, Erik? How are you doing?
I have lots of interesting things to say. Always.
Of course. Of course you do.
Yeah.
And you're doing very well?
I am. Thank you very much.
I'm glad to hear it.
I'm still not wearing any clothes.
Are you not wearing any clothes? Again?
Well, I'm wearing a pair of shorts. I'm wearing a pair of shorts, that's about it.
Okay. Well, if anyone listened to... Well, I know some of you listen to the Drunk Cast, the Demons 1 and 2 Drunk Cast, which you can still listen to, by the way, if you become a Patreon supporter. And we have some details about how to do that a little bit later in the show. And thank you to everyone who has. But Erik, of course, disgraced himself, as usual, in the Drunk Cast. The clothes came off after 2 sips of his baby sham.
Well... Yeah, I'm a bit of a lightweight, I have to say.
Yes.
That's because I'm not an alcoholic like you, Justin.
Well,
it takes about 14 gallons of whiskey to get you drunk.
Well, if anyone listens to Drunkcast, they realise that isn't actually true. It takes about 2 gallons of whiskey, actually. Thank you very much, Erik. So enough from you. Joseph, have you got over your hangover?
Hey, that was so rude.
Thank you. Cut to Joseph.
Joseph.
Oh, hi. What does fear taste like? I hear it tastes like chicken.
Well, possibly. We wouldn't know, being the vegans on the podcast, would we?
No.
But Nathan, are you over your hangover? Or are you a little bit like the character in Freddy vs. Jason? Can you see a funny looking worm in the room?
No, it's not to that level, I wouldn't say.
Not yet. The podcast
His new name is Nathan Freeberg.
So anyway, the gang is all here. So we'll be talking about Freddy vs. Jason a little bit later. But before we do, it's been a little while since we recorded. Nathan, do you want to go first? Tell us what you've been watching.
I watched Bloodbeat. And I thought that I'd seen this movie before, but watching it, nothing was familiar to me. So I don't think I have seen it before. So I think this was a first-time watch for me. And I really liked it. I thought it was kind of slow-moving at first. I mean, the pacing's a little off. But it's just so weird. It's one of the weirdest, slasher movies I've ever seen, which I liked. And you gave it kind of a decent review, Justin, on your side. It was, I think you gave it something like 3 out of 5 or maybe 2.5 out of 5, something like that.
Okay, I can't remember, possibly, yes.
Yeah, but it's weird. Like, this woman's orgasms apparently kills people.
Well, you wouldn't forget a film with basically a giant ghostly samurai being summoned by a woman masturbating, would you? It's not the kind of thing you forget that easily.
Yeah, it's definitely a memorable film, from that aspect.
I like the film too. It's kind of trippy, but it reminds me of a certain film, but I don't know if I'm allowed to mention it, considering the week you've just had, Nathan, but it reminded me of 1981's Scream. That type of vibe.
Oh, considering the week I just had on that.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your week, Nathan?
Sure. I mean, I was on Facebook and on one of these horror groups, and someone had posted about Scream from 1981. And you guys all know me. You know that I love like just about every 80s slasher movie that there is. And, so I just wrote, basically that I enjoyed it, mainly due to the creepy atmosphere. And the next thing I know, some guy says that I think it turned into he won't tolerate people liking that movie. So he blocked me, and he basically went on this crazy spree of, if anybody likes this movie, respond now so I can block you or something. And it was just the silliest, most ridiculous thing that I've seen on Facebook. I mean, I've just never seen anybody that can't handle a movie opinion like that.
Yes, well, it's Facebook always throws up new things, isn't it? Little kinks. So,
yeah, it was funny because I think he was like, anybody that likes this doesn't know anything about horror and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, oh my goodness, dude, you sound like you're a kid.
Well, that's fighting talk, Nathan.
Yeah,
so,
I know. I'm like, I know my horror. Come on.
Yeah, well, you do. You're nobody is a bigger connoisseur of bottom of the barrel horror than you, Nathan.
Yes, Nathan. And that's a compliment.
Yes, I'm very, very excited about that.
Good, excellent. Well, have you seen anything else?
Well, I have seen one other thing. Well, I will say this just as an aside. I've been watching the second season of Santa Clarita Diet, and it's absolutely hysterical. I love this show, and I'm not a big zombie fan, but I just love the way this show handles, the whole zombie thing. It's really funny, and all the characters are really good in it, so I highly recommend that one. Cool. I know Joseph's already binge watched the whole season.
Yes, I have. This is probably my favorite Netflix show on right now. I mean, obviously, I watched the entire second season, so I'm basically waiting for the third. But I really love it. It's so funny. Timothy Olyphant, he has really good comic timing. It's just really gross and gory, and it's getting weirder and weirder as it goes along. It's just a fun show. It's like Ash versus Evil Dead. It's like each episode's like 20 to 25 minutes, so it doesn't overstay its welcome and just breezes by it, 10 episodes per season. So I definitely highly recommend that.
Cool. I haven't caught up with it. I enjoyed the first series, but
Is it on Netflix UK?
It is, yeah.
In Ireland. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's on the UK. I presume the same. It would be.
I saw you mention it during the week, and I'd completely forgotten what it was about. It just doesn't. The title of the show doesn't make it sound like a zombie thing at all. I thought it was some kind of sitcom.
I mean, it's
like a
zomcom
or
yeah, because the whole deal with the show is Drew Barrymore, she is like a zombie because she gets infected, and part of it's trying to find out how she got infected and all this kind of stuff. But she maintains her personality, but just sort of an exaggerated version. So it's she has trouble killing people because she's not a bad person. So they're trying to seek out people that deserve to die. So, I mean, I don't know. It's really funny the way the writers do a really good job.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan. Did you want to talk about the other film?
Well, I was going to wait and talk about it with you since you saw it before I did.
Okay, all right. Well, fair enough. Joseph, how about you? What have you been watching?
Well, the only other thing I've seen is the movie we've all seen.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll just talk about it now then.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. You first.
All right. Well, okay, I'll start. So I watched Terrifier, the new movie with the killer clown, Art the Clown. I had seen All Hallows Eve, and I really liked that movie. So I thought, okay, well, I definitely want to watch Terrifier. And
what's the connection between the two films?
The Killer.
Okay, so is this a sequel then, or is it?
Not really a sequel, but the killer's the same in both movies. But like, that's the only like similarity between the two movies is the killer.
Okay.
Like the Terrifier doesn't mention any of the events, I don't think, unless I missed it, from All Hallows Eve. But I thought it was really creepy. I think the killer is creepy. I think clowns can be pretty creepy anyway. But I thought that the killer was really scary. And even scenes like where they're sitting in a pizza restaurant with, people around. Even scenes like that are very creepy just because of the way he acts. He just acts very weird and very freaky. So it's a really brutal movie. I mean, there are some death scenes in it. And I was like, good grief, that's pretty brutal. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I liked it, but it's one of those movies that it's like one part of it I thought, man, this is really mean-spirited. But of course, then the gore is so over the top that I'm like, well, not really, because it's, I mean, all this like blood spurting and stuff, and then people still being alive when they obviously probably should already be dead. But I mean, I don't want to say too much about it because I mean, there's kind of a twist sort of about the midway mark. And things kind of switch up a little bit, but I don't want to say too much about that. I'll just say that I liked it because I thought it was really a very creepy film. There's something that happens with a disfigured woman that I didn't really care as much for. I was talking to Justin about it. I was like, I agree with him. I think Justin said he felt like it was kind of just shoehorned in for shock value. And I kind of felt that way too. So I think that could have been left off. But ultimately, I mean, I really liked it. I thought it was really creepy. So.
Okay, excellent. Sorry, apologies for I think we're having a few Skype issues.
Oh, I was moving to.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that there's a few kind of little Skype niggles going on, but hopefully those will disappear as we go along. But thank you, Nathan. What did you think, Joseph?
I liked it and I disliked it. I thought the first half was better than the second half. The first half has some pretty decent, suspense building moments where just kind of this Art the Clown is kind of like lingering in the background and you don't really know what he's going to do. And I think he looks and acts really creepy. I'm not really scared of clowns or anything, but they do a good job of that. I think my problem is that they show Art a little too much, so he kind of loses his steam about halfway through, and it kind of shifts in from building suspense into just kind of being kind of vile and disgusting and kind of over the top, mean spirited in a way. Even though the splatter stuff is kind of hammy and low budget, I still think it just kind of gets almost just painful to watch and kind of shrill with all the screaming and suffering people go through. So I think if they would have maintained the first half throughout the whole film, it would have been a lot better. But it's pretty decent for such a low budget affair. So I would recommend it on that. But it's not something I'm in a hurry to ever see again, if I'm honest.
Okay. Well, I could just throw my tuppence. It was you haven't seen it, Erik, have you? Yeah.
I have.
Oh, you have. Okay.
I watched it this morning.
Oh, what did you think?
Yeah. I was surprised, actually, because I did really like it, but I do agree with Joseph that I think the first half hour is its strongest portion, and particularly that scene in the pizzeria that Nathan was mentioning where the two girls are sitting down and Art the Clown comes in and sits opposite them and just stares at them. That was the type of stuff that really worked for me, and I thought those two characters were really likable as well. Then when it shifts to the bulk of the film, which is in this abandoned apartment block or something, whatever it is, or a warehouse, that's when I lost interest in it, because it turns more into sort of a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type, almost torture porn type movie. And so the second half I didn't enjoy as much, but I thought it was really well acted, really well made. And I think, there are going to be people who really, really dig it without sounding too 60s. But for me, the first half was really strong, second half not so much. And I did find it kind of mean-spirited as well. I thought there were likable characters that were, just tortured and pummeled to death. And it was, kind of grueling to watch that, I thought. I would have liked a bit more of a fun slasher vibe, perhaps. But I have to give it a thumbs up. I haven't seen All Hallows Eve, but this is the first time ever that a horror film has successfully made a clown sinister and scary, because I generally don't find them sinister and scary.
You should watch All Hallows Eve when you get a chance, because it's sort of like an anthology with Art the Clown, and like what you and Joseph liked about the movie, the first half, which I agree. I mean, I liked the whole thing, but I did kind of think the first half was stronger. These stories are more like the first half of the Terrifier. So I would recommend checking it out.
Also,
when I get a chance.
If you check it out, because Terrifier, it was a short film as well before All Hallows Eve. So there was a short film, which is what Terrifier, the feature's based on, from 10 years ago or so. It's a different actor playing Art the Clown in both the original short and All Hallows Eve, but they've done a really good job. I think the Art the Clown in this is the actor's excellent. And I hadn't seen All Hallows Eve or the original Terrifier short for a number of years, but I had to look up. I didn't realise it was a different actor. But I kind of agree with you. I mean, so much I really liked the first half an hour. I thought it did a fairly skillful job of going to. I mean, it was really over the top. It goes to places where a lot of horror films just wouldn't dare go to. But for me, it kind of teetered on the kind of the knife edge of falling over into torture porn, or that so extreme horror that it becomes just becomes almost numbing, because but it had a sort of sense of humour to it, and a perversity in a kind of almost John Waters style way that I thought kind of worked. I mean, there's a scene in it where the actor playing Art the Clown is kind of naked, and you see his winkle, and he's got strapped on a pair of severed breasts, and he's kind of taunting one of the characters, and that kind of slightly bizarre. And there's another bit towards the end where a character's has locked him out of somewhere, and he's taunting her. He's got a little horn from his toy bicycle that he's kind of squeaking at her. Things like that just kind of lift it out of what could become a very, kind of a Jigsaw-esque or kind of that typical torture porn thing. But it goes really over the top, and I liked it quite a lot. I thought it was interesting, and I liked the way that it looked like it was a 80s or late 70s grindhouse movie, the way it was shot, but it didn't hammer you over the head with it. It didn't have like jump cuts and kind of.
I noticed that particularly with the style of the font for the credits, and that was very much a throwback, which I really liked.
Yeah, but it didn't kind of hammer you over the head, did it? It didn't.
No, exactly. No, it didn't have the false scratches and real change things put into it.
No, but I liked it. I mean, it kind of without giving too much away. I mean, it feels, and I think one of the words that Nathan used when we were chatting about it online was it's quite nightmarish, in so much genuinely nightmarish, i.e. things happen and it don't really actually make a great deal of sense, but it kind of works in context. And especially the very ending of the film, which obviously I won't spoil, but it's bookended by two scenes which maybe feel like they may have just been sort of shoehorned on for shock effect, but if it works in the context of a nightmare, then so be it. But it's a thumbs up from me. I thought it was good. I'd like to see more of it, but maybe with slightly, I don't know, slightly bigger budget, but then maybe it'd lose some of what its kind of uniqueness about it.
I didn't get the feeling. It didn't feel particularly low budget to me. It felt, I didn't see any failings in it.
I guess the low budget was the fact that it was all pretty much kind of two locations, wasn't it? It was pizzeria and the warehouse. There wasn't really any. They didn't feel particularly expansive. You really got much of a feeling of a world beyond those. Although there was a couple of scenes with people driving cars and stuff, it felt quite claustrophobic, which itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I liked the way that the characters kind of seemed quite believable, didn't they? But also slightly cartoonish. I actually liked
the two main girls that are in the pizzeria. I thought they were really well acted, and I was like, I like these people. They're interesting people. But I just think these films where they put characters through the ringer too much, it's just not a lot of rewatchability there.
Exactly, I would agree. Yeah.
I like my kind of flimsy fun, not the heavy, just constant brutality. This stuff doesn't really do much for me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, but for me, it felt like it kind of teetered on the edge, and it didn't. With the over-the-top gore and the kind of slightly nightmarish, surreal nature of it, it didn't tip into that kind of endless grinding, kind of numbing horror for me.
I kind of agree. I was just going to say I agree with Justin in that, to me, it really rode the line of, okay, is this too much or is it all right? Because I know where you guys are coming from, because if you introduce characters that are somewhat likable and then put them through the most brutal, torturous death sequences, I'm like, I don't know. It can be very difficult to watch, but I don't know. For some reason in this one, I think just because the gore is just so unbelievable, it just kind of made it a little easier to deal with.
Yeah, I think some of the art stuff where like Justin was saying, where he puts on the woman's breasts and he's completely nude. It reminded me a lot of the killer from the Poughkeepsie tapes, where he just kind of taunts his victims. It had that sort of Poughkeepsie tapes feel to it. Although I don't think it was I think it was a little easier to stomach in the Poughkeepsie tapes, because obviously it being a found footage film, they couldn't do a whole lot of gore, so it wasn't kind of slamming you over the head constantly. But yeah, I just found some similarities there. It also reminded me a little bit of something like Nathan saying how the gore is so over the top that it gets kind of silly. It reminded me a little bit of that bowling movie. I think it was Gutter Balls a little bit. But maybe not as mean-spirited or as trashy as Gutter Balls, but it had that kind of, it was shot similar, like it had saturated colors and the bright lighting, almost neon lighting all over people. It just had that kind of that low-budget Gutter Balls feel to me.
And this is a Dread Central production. That's the website, I assume.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Is this their first movie, or have they been doing this for a while?
I couldn't tell you.
No, it's the first one I'm aware of. So,
well, they've done a good job, considering how poor the Fangoria ones were back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Hey, I like School's Out.
But that wasn't a Fangoria production, was it? I don't think it was is one they picked up. Because that was the German one, wasn't it? It was, yeah. So, okay, right. Well, thank you. I forgot. We talked so long about Terrifier. I think. Forgot where we're up to. Was that everything from you, Joseph?
Yeah, that's just Terrifier and Santa Clarita Diet for me this week.
Okay, well, thank you. Eric, how about you?
Okay, well, the only other thing I saw of note during the week, and I'm only mentioning this because it has a few horror elements, although it's not a horror film. I saw Ready Player One, which is the new Spielberg movie. And its advanced word was this is going to be the second coming of cinema, which it's not by any means. It's basically a more entertaining riff on Avatar. It's set in a dystopian future where the majority of the population escape into this virtual reality world known as the Oasis. And it's populated with loads of sort of pop cultural references and icons, mainly to the 80s for some reason. I don't know why that is, but it works in my favor because I'm such a big 80s fanboy. So you get lots of mentions of Duran Duran, and there's Atari games consoles, and John Hughes movies are constantly referenced. And the reason I'm bringing it up is that there's a few horror elements in there, including a Blink and You'll Miss It cameo by Freddy Krueger, who is one of our stars of today and next week. And there's a slightly bigger cameo for Chucky. And there's a wonderful sequence in the middle that is an extended homage to The Shining, which is just worth the admission price alone, even if you don't like the rest of the movie. Overall, it was much more of a kids' film than I was anticipating. I didn't think it was going to be targeted so young. So I think, like, for sort of the 12 to 16, 17-year-old bracket, it's probably going to be their Goonies, because I think it really does work. It's very effective, and I thought it was, it was exhilarating entertainment for 2 hours, but instantly forgettable at the same time, and probably something I wouldn't revisit. But I do recommend it for that shining sequence midway through the film.
Cool. I've not seen that. How about you, Nathan and Joseph? Have you seen it yet? Or any interest?
No, I'm not. I'll check it out, but I'm not interested enough to go see it at the theater or anything.
I'll check it out, and I think Wes wants to see it too. So, I mean, we might go to the theater. I don't know.
3D is pretty good. I mean, things don't. It's still not the gaudy 3D we love from the 80s, but it was pretty decent.
Which sounds like a completely missed opportunity, doesn't it? Considering the pop culture references, but so it's Spielberg, isn't it?
Yeah, and apparently the novel is supposed to be a big deal, but it's been scaled down considerably because I think it would be a copyright nightmare to include all the references from the novel into the film.
Right.
Apparently, is what I heard. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you, Erik. Is there anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Apologies if you can hear a house alarm going off in the background.
Oh, a little bit. It's gone off now.
Yeah.
No, it's still going.
It hasn't. No, it's still going.
It's going.
Yeah. I will mute myself while I'm not talking.
No, don't worry. But I don't think it's that loud, but it gives it kind of 3D sort of feel to the podcast, doesn't it? That gritty urban feel.
Yeah. So urban. Yeah. Yo. That was me being urban.
Well, it's very good, very good. I've got a couple of films that I've reviewed. I've started adding some new reviews onto Hysteria Lives. It's coming up to the 20th anniversary in August, which is quite scary. 2 ones I've added so far. I'm working on a couple more at the moment, but one is Edge of Terror, which has Meg Foster and Wings Hauser in it. It's a Nico Mastorakis. I don't know if I pronounce his name right. The Greek director. It's a kind of a slasher. I liked it a fair bit. It's not brilliant, but it's got like Meg Foster being chased around a remote Greek village while a wind machine blows the whole time by a suitably deranged Wings Hauser with a hand scythe, who for some bizarre reason decides he's going to kill her. I know it doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. Is that a film that any of you have caught? A.K.A. The Wind?
No, haven't seen it.
Yes, I saw it a long time ago. I used to have one of those Turkish posters for it, where it was actually Friday the 13th Part 5, but they used artwork from that film with Meg Foster and the 2 kids on the scythe. But yeah, I saw it a long time ago. I don't really remember anything about it.
No. What about you, Nathan?
I'm like Joseph. I know I've seen it, but I don't remember anything.
Okay. Well, it's worth a watch. I'm just looking, sort of trying to find, bringing out the page on the site just for the other one, which was is a Canadian slasher from 1987, I think. It was Possession Until Death Do You Part, which isn't a film that I think I'd heard of it before, but I hadn't seen it until now. And it's very, very cheesy, late 80s kind of slasher with a kind of like ripping off Psycho, but with a killer who kind of wears kind of like Rambo face paint. And then goes after a group of women who spend most of their time in strip clubs and dancing around in their underwear. And all the time I was watching it, I was thinking, this must be one of Nathan's favourite movies. And I think I might be correct in that, or at least something that you would like a lot.
Am I getting a reputation on this podcast?
Well, I think if it's not cemented by now, it never will be. Is it a kind of film? It's a film that you like, isn't it, Nathan?
Which one is it? You were cutting out for me. I couldn't hear which one you were talking about.
Possession Until Death Do You Part.
Oh, yes, I do love me some Possession.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. It's very silly, but I mean, hey, that's what I like.
Yeah, it's got the woman who's the bitchy girl who dies in the shower in Friday the 13th, Part 7. Jason Takes Manhattan. She's the lead in this, but it's
Part 8.
Part 8. Sorry. Thank you.
Tamara.
Yeah, she's in this, and she wears like horrible shell suits throughout most of it, and there's lots of nudity.
I have to see this.
Yeah, I think it's, and there's fantastic sequence in the in a male strip club where all the women have got like rock hard hair and wearing bow ties and things like that. It's kind of it could be more 80s. Yeah, it's very, very trashy, and if that's your kind of thing, that's your bag, then you'd like that very much. So I have watched a few other things, but as we are recording fairly soon after this podcast, I'm going to hold back. So I've got something to talk about for next time. But yeah, well, that's what we've been watching recently. So without any further ado, shall we head over to, is it Springfield?
Springwood.
Springwood, which...
Springfield is where the Simpsons live.
Oh, well, that's, I know. Well, okay. But Springwood, who knew it's so close to Crystal Lake?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to witness the most anticipated match in the history of slasher films for the heavyweight championship of the underworld. Our challenger today hails from Camp Crystal Lake, standing at 6 foot and 7 inches tall, weighing in at a whopping 317 pounds. He's been called the Sultan of Slash, the goalie of gore. Just don't call him Mama's boy. Jason Voorhees. And our champion, hailing from Springwood, he's been called the Springwood Slasher, the Dream Demon, standing 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighing in at 175 pounds, Freddy Krueger. Okay, that was my best Michael Buffer. my Michael Buffer impression for Let's Get Ready to Rumble or whatever that is. So I'll stop that now. I guess any self-professed slasher fan, or more specifically fans of these two titans of terror, Freddy and Jason, I guess pretty much anyone had probably anticipated this little matchup for years and years, and I think it's safe to say I'm no exception. The problem is, how do you take Jason out of the earthy confines of summer camp and implant him into dreamland, considering the dead don't dream, or do they? I don't know. But I suppose if you can launch Jason into space, anything is possible. The intricacies of the hows and whys aren't really important to a film called Freddy versus Jason, and this movie certainly reflects that. Having said that, pretty much any script they came up with was going to be riddled with, I guess, kind of bullshittery to its finest degree. And I say what we got here is about as par for the course as can be. So just don't sweat the details and just have fun watching these two beat the snot out of one another. On that level, Freddy versus Jason is sort of fun in a video game kind of aesthetic sort of way. But for me, that's about as kind as I can be to a film that essentially sidelines these two giants for a tired plot about yet more teens who basically don't want to dream no more. By this point in both franchises, I mean, what else can be said about the victims that had already been said before? So I think for me, I just wanted to kind of watch these two, fuck one another up for about 90 minutes. We don't really get that much until the last 15 or so minutes, and it's kind of at the expense of both Freddy and Jason. I mean, as far as I can remember, Jason is not afraid of water, and I think Freddy, it's kind of weird that he's powerful enough to manipulate a dead guy like Jason into going on a killing spree, but he's not powerful enough, at least at first, to get more than one measly kill in the entire film. Furthermore, I really couldn't care. I really didn't care about any of the characters. And it's not that they were unlikable or anything. They were just kind of bland, and they definitely just kind of stood in the way of the matchup that we paid to see. I mean, all things considered, it could have been a lot worse, but I think Freddy vs. Jason is also a film that could have been, so much more than what we got. I don't hate it, but I mean, I actually recall liking it when it debuted at the cinemas, but that may have just been kind of, fanboy excitement. It really hasn't aged all that well, if I'm honest. So I do have more to say about it. I'll just say neither thumbs up or down for me. It's just kind of a so-so experience that it deserves to be more than so-so. But for now, I'll pass it over to Erik.
Yeah, I think I would be in more or less agreement with you there, Joseph. If ever there was a film to epitomize me once liking a film and then completely reversing that decision, then it's Freddy versus Jason. Because back in 2003 when it came out, I went to see it twice in the cinema because I just thought it was hugely entertaining. And then I bought it on DVD when it came out, and I watched it again. I thought, it's not holding up as well as I remembered. And now watching it again, sort of 10 years later, probably since I last saw it, it just felt like kind of a chore almost to sit through. And apologies again for this fucking alarm. It's still going on in the background. So, I mean, our two main characters, Jason, I don't like the approach they've taken to Jason in this film. He seems a little too vulnerable and not as threatening. And as you said, since when is he afraid of water? He was killing people in lakes in parts 4, in part 6, in part 7. In part 8, he goes for a swim in the ocean to make his way to Manhattan. So where the hell is this fear of water coming from? Not that I'm not nerdy enough to be totally, taken out of a film by some inconsistencies with previous entries in the franchise. It doesn't bother me too much, but that one kind of did. I don't like the look of his character. I just can't pinpoint what it is. It might be, I don't know. He doesn't look like Jason to me. And I know they have different actors in more or less every entry in the franchise, but on this one, I didn't feel it looked like Jason at all. Freddy, he looks pretty decent here. I thought the makeup was quite good, particularly when he turns demonic there's a bit towards the end of the film where he's sort of like almost a devil character. I thought that was really well done. My problem with Freddy in this one is that he's just way too camp, even by his standards. I mean, he puts the camp into Camp Crystal Lake. He's like bloody crispy Kenneth Williams. Particularly that one scene I was mentioning to you last night. There's a scene where he's in the dream world and he's playing pinball with Jason, as in Jason is the pinball, and he's being pinged around this warehouse, and Freddy is doing it in a sort of gurning kind of way, and it just makes me cringe. I just have to put my hands up to my face and look at it through my fingers because it's just so cringy, and I'm just mortified for the people who made the film when that sequence comes on. The human characters, as you said, they're just boring, they're just bland, and I didn't care about any of them. Kelly Rowland, of course, big superstar from Destiny's Child, she's fine as Kia up until the moment she tries to distract Freddy by belittling him and using a rather rude F word about gay gentlemen. And that's when her sort of amateur acting skills sort of shine through. And I feel bad for her because she seems decent enough up until that point, but then it gives it away. The stoner character, I could have killed him. I didn't like him at all. Made me want to throw rotten vegetables at the screen. As for the plot, this is probably the best they could come up with. As you said, it's going to be difficult to find something that will work. And to be honest, it's not the plot that bothers me so much. It's more or less the bland nature of the characters. Turning Jason into a kind of wimp was a big problem, I thought. The one thing that did bother me about the plot was this whole subplot about trying to erase Freddy from history to stop people remembering him, and they've gone through the archives and cut up all the newspapers to remove any articles about Freddy, and anybody who remembers him is sent to a lunatic asylum, and it just seems like very, very convoluted, and even for a film of this nature, it seems far-fetched. So I know we're doing this for Friday the 13th, but to me it feels much more like a Freddy movie, even though, as you said, I think Freddy only kills one person in it, but it still feels to me like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie rather than a Friday the 13th movie. And the Elm Street sequels, which I used to love back in the day, and I used to prefer them much more to Friday the 13th, I've completely reversed that decision now. I mean, I find a lot of the Elm Street sequels have lost their sheen over the years, whereas I'm still there with the Friday the 13th series. So that might be the problem for me for Freddy versus Jason, is that feels more Elm Street-ish than it does Camp Crystal Lake-ish. But as I said, once upon a time I loved it. Now I don't like it so much. So, yeah. That's me.
Mm-hmm. We are in complete agreement there.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan, your turn.
Well, I'm going to echo what you guys have said. Now, I watched this the first time with Joseph, actually. We went to a theater and watched it, and there's a funny story. Yeah, it was quite a date.
It was in Baltimore.
Yeah, we were at a horror con, and that movie got released that weekend.
Did you kiss in the back of the cinema?
It was packed, so of course we did. No, like this little kid sat next to me, and right before the movie even started, he dropped his soda in my lap. So I watched the movie covered in like Coke, not cocaine, like Coca-Cola. But I mean, he apologized. So I mean, I wasn't like mad. It was just a little frustrating. But what was crazy is, like, I ended up really loving the movie. I enjoyed it a lot. And I always kept saying to myself, I don't want to watch it again because I always felt like it would not hold up on a rewatch. And unfortunately, it did not hold up on a rewatch. I really understand where Eric's coming from, because it really doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th movie to me at all. And I just didn't like the way Jason was treated, because I kind of felt that he was kind of wimpy through some of the movie, like when he was battling Freddy. And the fear of water really bothers me. And the reason it bothers me is not so much because it's just, some silly plot twist in the movie or something, but I just feel like the makers of this movie, I mean, I feel like they were Nightmare on Elm Street fans, but not Friday the 13th fans. Because their Friday the 13th knowledge, like with the water stuff, that's so inconsistent. But they remembered stuff from Nightmare on Elm Street, like the hypnosil from Part 3. And I thought, okay, well, I think they might have studied up on Nightmare on Elm Street, but not on Friday the 13th. Because, I mean, heck, like in Part 6, I mean, Jason just walks into the water to go after Tommy Jarvis. I mean, it's just it's so silly, this idea that he's afraid of water. I mean, Jason, like, he's gone into the water many, many times in that series. And I'm like, anybody that would have seen any of those movies would know that. And I just got the feeling that they didn't know it or something.
It would be like saying Justin's scared of alcohol.
Yeah. And you know that's not true.
Graveyards and alcohol are his two favorite things.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I don't see you denying it. I don't hear you denying it even.
I think I heard him say,
No, I just said it's beneath my contempt.
Oh.
But anyway, carry on, Nathan. Erik was stopped so rudely interrupting you.
I know, Erik. Come on. I was agreeing with you.
Well, keep agreeing. Well, that's because I'm sexy and brilliant. Everyone agrees with me.
I hated the little pinball moment when Jason's being thrown around and it's playing like pinball sound effects. I don't know. I mean, I felt like it just got a little too slapstick for me, rather than like this crazy battle. It just felt like a comic slapstick battle. And I don't know, that didn't really translate as well for me. And I mean, like you guys said, I didn't really mind the characters in the movie, to be honest. I like Catherine Isabel a lot, but unfortunately she doesn't make it that far into the movie. But I mean, I like the characters well enough, but I mean, I don't know. I could see where you guys are coming from with they're kind of bland. I mean, I get that. I definitely get that. Overall, to be honest with you, I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10. There's some parts I like, parts I don't. But I mean, I'm more of a Friday the 13th fan than a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, even though I love both series. I'm more Friday the 13th because it's just more the traditional slasher movie. So I'm more of a fan of it. And I just really felt like they did a disservice to the Friday the 13th fans in this movie. Because it just, I don't know. It just, like even the scene really bothered me too when Jason like morphs back into a little kid and Freddy's taunting him. I don't know. I was just like, come on, this is not Jason. So, like I said, 5 out of 10. Not awful, but And that's what I got to say.
Okay, what about you, Justin?
I'll just be honest, I'm pretty much in agreement. I mean, for some context, I remember this coming out and it being a big deal and like the excitement was palpable. And I remember seeing it at the cinema and enjoying it. And I've said this story before, but I remember we were sat there and we turned around and there was these kids kind of like talking, and of course you're not meant to have this would have been an 18, I would think. I think it was an 18. It might have been a 15, but certainly you're not allowed to come into a film if you're younger than those ages for the certificates. And sort of turned around and there were like some like 7-year-olds sat there that had gone to see some Disney movie and then just kind of snuck in and watched it instead, and they looked very excited. So fair play to them. I remember liking it quite a lot in the cinema, but I think the problem I've got is kind of what you've already said, is they've kind of fumbled Jason completely. It isn't, Jason is just kind of there's an aggression to Jason that was missing from this. This kind of, he almost felt like one of the, it was, they tried to make him kind of like, I think one of you mentioned, said the word vulnerable. And there's a bit at the end where he almost looks like doe-eyed, as if he's kind of like, you know. And I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to, you know, help you take sides. But Jason in the other movies, and if they'd actually got Kane Hodder, I think he would have brought that kind of aggression to the part. Where Jason is just, you know, they had him being, you know, unstoppable and keeping going, but he just didn't feel that aggressive. It was almost, I don't know, he was basically Freddy's puppet throughout the movie, and that didn't work. I really liked the scene in the cornfield where he's on fire and he's walking through. I mean, I thought that was quite iconic, and it worked really well. But even with that, it was strange that they kind of like the mayhem was just starting to kick off, and then they cut from it really suddenly to them all in the back of a van with his you know, taking him to Crystal Lake. I think that was when that happened. No, that wasn't. That was later when they're on the way to the to this kind of bizarre teen asylum for, we've got all these kind of teenagers locked down in the basement. It's like you said. It's more like a Freddy movie, a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, written by people who really liked Freddy and the Nightmare on Elm Street world, and they kind of fumbled the Friday 13th elements. You know, I didn't dislike the ideas that they had. You know, there was a great scene in the you know, starts off with, you know, a topless woman sort of skinny dipping and being chased through the kind of the woods, and then all the victims morphing, you know, one to one, and then Pamela Voorhees turning into Freddy. I mean, all those things I can see they kind of worked quite well, but it's just quite an awkward mix. I think you're taking something which is so iconic and so formulaic in such a good way, which is why I say the Friday 13th game works so well, because it's the same thing over and over and over again. It makes no apologies for that. You take that and then you add in something where you've got like this dream, the whole thing is kind of a dream-like, surreal, cartoonish quality. And Friday 13th, although there's cartoonish elements, certainly in the later sequels with the gore and everything, and, you know, the telekinesis and all of those kind of, you know, Jason going to space, there's a cartoonish nature to them, but they are a little bit like chalk and cheese when it comes to, you know, franchises. So it would have been interesting if they'd done a Freddy versus Michael, or, you know, if they tried something different. I don't know how that would have worked. I think. Do
you mean Jason versus Michael?
Oh, sorry, Jason. It was Jason versus Michael, wasn't it, rather than Freddy versus Michael? They probably tried out all sorts of different ideas, didn't they? Because they were going to throw Ash from the Evil Dead in at some point. I think it did. Well, we've got into background in a bit with the comics. But and I think there was even Leatherface thrown into the mix at some point. I like the idea, you know, I like the idea of is it Ronnie Yu, the kind of director, you know, coming in from that kind of that Chinese cinema of like the martial arts, throwing that into the mix, and I think that worked better at the time than it does now, potentially, because it just, like I think Joseph mentioned, it looked a bit like a video game towards the end, and I think it kind of does, and it loses. Yeah, it just doesn't quite work. It worked at the time. The spectacle in cinema was great, but again, it's not something that I return to that often. And I'm like Erik, you know, not in many ways, thankfully, but I'm like Erik in as much that, and the rest of you really, that the Friday 13th films have more of a rewatchability for me now than the Nightmare on Elm Street ones. So it's going to be interesting to see when we actually do cover that film, which you pretend I haven't mentioned what it is, coming up, the Elm Street sequel. Yeah,
part 4.
I don't hate it. It's very watchable, you know, but it's, yeah, I think it's it would have benefited from. One of the things I was thinking actually watching it, I was thinking what might have worked better potentially is you had like dual story lines where you actually had people at Crystal Lake. And you had two storylines going on at the same time, cutting between the two. So you actually had people being chased around Crystal Lake by Jason while stuff was going on in the town with Freddy before they kind of met up. It might have worked better. But yeah, it was. Yeah, it is what it is. But it's not a film that I go back to that often, I don't think.
Wow, it's been a negatron.
Yes. Justin, are you going to update your body count for it? Because I just looked at your review and you don't have a body count.
I should have done. Well, I'm not going to watch it again to do that.
There you go. That's your answer, Nathan.
There we go.
I mean,
in terms of the body count, I did really like the that horrible guy Trey being cut in two, I suppose, but by folding the bed up. Folded in two, probably is a better word.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of fun and inventive, but it just when it goes to the asylum scenes and all that, I get a bit bored, to be honest.
Yeah,
I agree with Justin. I think that a dual storyline that would have been really good. Like, we get a little mini slasher movie with Jason killing some teens at Camp Crystal Lake and Freddy's storyline going on. Now, I don't know how they would bring them together, but I like that idea better than what we got in Freddy versus Jason.
I think the Jason and Michael mashup would have made more sense.
Yeah, because they take place in the world.
Same universe. Yeah. Again, I don't know how. The thing with these versus movies is that they probably have to make you root for one character or the other, which means turning them into a good guy ish, which is kind of what Batman versus Superman. They had to do the reverse. They had to make one of these superheroes a bad guy, which was weird. So yeah, because I think we were supposed to root for Jason. I'm assuming Jason was a good guy, and that's probably why it fails to work, because he's not meant to be a good guy.
Yeah.
What did you think? We touched on it, but the Kelly Rowland stuff about the word faggot, which I know is problematic for a lot of people.
It doesn't. I mean, I'm not offended by it, and I don't take any offense to it. It's in the script. It's not her problem. But
it wasn't in the script.
I do think it's odd that they put it in. I mean, I know it's 15 years ago, but still, it was kind of a risky move to put a word like that into the script.
But it wasn't in the script. It was the both.
It was ad-libbed, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah, they said they were really upset by it because it wasn't in the script.
It was ad-libbed by Kelly Rowland,
presumably. Yeah.
Oh dear, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's why. Yeah, because the people who they said that a number of cast and crew had a problem with it, but it was ad-libbed. Now, who ad-libbed it? Whether it's Kelly Rowland, because I think you kind of touched on, you sort of saying her performance, and suddenly it's where she's going off script almost. It's almost like the director said, right, just kind of shout slurs and things at Freddy, and let's just see where this goes, which is quite unusual for like a multi-million-pound movie to suddenly go like improvised, but it was the script writers who I've got written down, but I can't put it in front of me right now, but they said that they were upset because they didn't write that dialogue and they didn't like the fact that people thought they would.
I take it back then. Sorry.
So
it didn't necessarily offend me because I love Last Slumber Party, and those are some of the most homophobic girls like in any slasher movie. So I don't know. Yeah. It didn't necessarily offend me. I mean, obviously it could have been left out, but I don't know. Like I just don't really get easily offended by stuff.
I think it's more the fact that if you saw it at the cinema and people cheered when she said that, that's where I think it would have been problematic if you were sat there watching it. And I can't remember if people cheered when I saw it. I can't remember, but I think
I don't think they did. Yeah, I think it just bypassed everyone when I was watching it anyway.
Yeah, but I can see both sides in so much that why she felt that she would need to, she or whoever felt that it was needed in such a silly popcorny movie to throw that in.
Yeah, I can't believe it for two reasons. One, they left it in because it's kind of as I said, a risky word in this sort of modern world we live in, but also because her performance is so bad in it. I think you think they'd try and trim it down as much as they could.
Well, I was watching it and I thought actually you could easily have cut that sentence out and it would have made no difference whatsoever to what happened.
It didn't serve any purpose.
No, I mean there's also people criticise
even
the
if
fact
she did.
Sorry, come.
I was just going to say, even if she did ad-lib it herself, I mean, the editors left it in, so someone behind the scenes must have thought that was a good line to keep in the film.
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because interesting, but in context that other people have criticised Freddy sort of talking about dark meat, so about, I don't get into it hugely, but for like such a big budget relative to like any kind of slasher movie, studio project, you've got like Freddy using a kind of racial slur and then her using a homophobic slur back at him. It's kind of unusual, isn't it, for something that relatively plays it safe throughout the rest of the running time.
They're like two people having a sparring match on Facebook.
Yeah. Well,
because that's the level of conversation you get on Facebook these days, as Nathan found out.
Yeah, I don't think you would get that in a film. If
Nathan got no conversation at all. He got blocked.
Oh yeah, dude blocked me. He didn't want to hear anything I had to say.
Yeah, very strange. But so anything else we want to say about the movie? The other thing that struck me a little bit was actually there's bits of it I thought worked really well. Some of the dreamlike sequences, actually, ironically, I thought actually the stuff with Jason's shack and the bodies underwater and things like that actually worked in some ways better than some of the Freddy stuff. But certainly, I thought some of you could tell, and I think this is always going to be a problem going forward. Some of the CGI from because it's from 2003, especially like with the worm, with the kind of the psychotropic kind of worm coming in with the stoner, it looked a bit ropey now when you compare to the practical effects of the similar kind of Freddy worm that you had in Dream Warriors. Was it Dream Warriors? It was the top three.
It was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so there were things like that. It was just kind of thing. The whole water thing. I mean, I was talking about this on Facebook, and I can see where they were going with it, which is kind of the fact is that Jason drowned in water, so therefore he would be frightened of water. But in retrospect, thinking about it, I mean, you are right that he did all those other things, and it just showed that they were almost just taking the basis of the first film, and I thought they recreated the Camp Crystal Lake in the 1950s. They threw loads of money at this, didn't they? It wasn't a cheap film by any stretch, and they recreated it and it looked really good. But like you say, it was. I kind of guess they was going for the elements, the earth. Fire and water. So I just wonder if they did get a few more. Who would be wind and who'd be earth? I imagine if what.
Yeah, go on. I can see where the sentence is going.
No, I can't even see where I was going myself. But yeah, but I can see where they're going with this. It's kind of like the two elemental forces fighting, and so it fits kind of in that way. But then, to be honest, Freddy didn't seem that scared of fire, did he? Particularly, they didn't really play by their own rules. They had he was in that burning building fighting Jason, and he wasn't shying away from the fire, was he? Particularly.
I think the long and short of it is that Freddy was a New Line boy, so they gave him more fan service here, and this is a New Line Cinema production. Jason eventually switched over to New Line, but it was pretty late in the game there. All the classic Jason stuff was Paramount, so that's probably why he didn't get as much attention to detail as Freddy did.
Well, that's what I heard was Bob. What's his Bob? Who's the guy?
Shay.
Bob Shay.
Bob Shay.
He was. He said he wanted more Freddy. It to be more Freddy orientated, which probably exactly for the same reasons that you said, Joseph. That it was. As they've often called it, New Line, the house that Freddy built.
I think it was a mistake, though, because people who are coming to see this movie, they're coming to see it like you've got Friday the 13th fans, Nightmare on Elm Street fans of both. But, I mean, you've got like these horror fans that have waited for this matchup and to basically say, oh, I want it to be more about this one, less about that one. I don't know. Like, for people who are more Friday the 13th fans, it just feels so meh.
Yeah, it would have been interesting if they'd done a sequel, because I think they were talking about doing a sequel at some point, and surprisingly, they didn't do a sequel, considering it made so much money at the box office. I mean, should we get onto some background now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay, who's got Nathan, go on, take it away.
Well, Kelly Rowland was in a group that not many people have heard of called Destiny's Child. Ooh. And it actually has another singer in it that not many people know of called Beyonce Knowles. So,
who was the other one? Wasn't there three of them?
Michelle,
yeah, there was three.
Michelle something.
Michelle Kwan. And let's see. That's all I got.
I don't think you're ready for this jelly.
I'm not ready for this background.
Well, thank you, Nathan, for that. So I'm sure the documentary makers for the next Friday the 13th documentary will be knocking on your door very soon for your background. But or the Destiny's Child documentary makers.
Yeah.
Awesome, because I don't even remember one of them's last name.
Yeah.
I'll be perfect for you.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much. Joseph, how about you?
Well, I typically don't go for background on the Freddy and Jason movies since they've all been covered to death in like Never Sleep Again or Crystal Lake Memories. But I do know the lead guy, the one who the lead girl wants to get out of the asylum or whatever. He's the
Jason
son.
Ritter, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's the son of the late John Ritter. So there you go. There's some background for you.
Cool. Okay, what about you, Erik?
Okay, I have a few things. It was $6 million apparently was spent on 18 different drafts over the course of 10 years. And then the actual final budget for the film itself was 30 million. So they plowed a lot of money into it. Now they did make it all back in spades in the end because it was a big success. Lewis Abernathy, who directed the incredible House 4, I'm sure we all know that film inside out now at this stage. He directed that for Sean Cunningham, and he was one of the ones who wrote one of the initial scripts, which included a cult that worshipped Freddy called the Fredheads. And that concept was still in the script up until very late in the day, but it was obviously dropped then just before they filmed. Rob Bottin was originally down to direct at one stage, the effects meister, who is probably most famous for things like The Thing and The Howling. Some of the original concepts they had for Freddy versus Jason involved Jason being in court and being tried for the murders at Crystal Lake. Another one was that Freddy had raped Jason's mother. And another one is that Jason is resurrected by having his heart thrown into Camp Crystal Lake. So I don't know, lots of ludicrous ideas. Brad Renfro was originally meant to play the role that eventually went to Jason Ritter, but he was fired not shortly before filming began because he was turning up to work late and drunk and off his tits on heroin. Production started on September the 9th, 2002 in Vancouver. So it was all shot in Canada over the course of 8 weeks. It was originally meant to start with one of the pretentious quotes that had prefixed parts 3 to 6 of the Elm Street series. This one was going to be a quote from Paradise Lost by Milton, but that was dropped. Betsy Palmer was approached to play Mrs. Voorhees. But they were only offering her SAG minimum, so she declined. The role was eventually played by Paula Shaw, who we all know was in the Army Now, Encino Man, and Biodome. That was my joke. Paula Shaw. Paula Shaw. Oh, sorry. I was confusing her with Pauly Shore. No, sorry. Paula Shaw was actually in the Centerfold Girls, which we covered relatively recently. She was also in Savage Streets. Try not to laugh too much at my brilliant joke, though, okay?
Hold on.
Sorry? Wow, that was loud. Some of the original endings considered: Freddy kills Will, Freddy kills Laurie's father, Laurie and Will shag. This was actually filmed, this one. Laurie and Will shag, and Will turns into Freddy, which you can see in the deleted scenes on the DVD. And it was released on August the 15th, 2003, and was number 1 at the box office for 2 weeks, which is very rare these days for a horror film. It made 114 million worldwide at the box office, and that's probably all I have. Over to you, Justin.
Okay, well, thank you. I did spot? I saw in some of the background. I can't pronounce her name. Evangeline Lilly, who was in Lost, a number of other things. She was one of the teenagers in the high school. You can see her in the background. I don't know if any of you spotted that.
I don't even know who she is.
I'm a Lost fan, so I didn't notice her.
Yeah, she's in. You see her when they're walking along the corridor in the high school. You can see her in the background, and then when they're talking about Freddy, you can see her sort of. She's just kind of. It's quite obviously her, because I did wonder if it was just one of these things that wasn't true, but I kind of looked out for her and I saw her. There, I like the. I saw on IMDb that they did a kind of a weigh-in, didn't they? Like at in Las Vegas, I think, at Bally's Las Vegas Hotel, a weigh-in between Freddy and Jason, sort of as a kind of publicity stunt on the run-up to the film, which was quite sort of cute. Ken Kersinger, who played Jason, apparently there's kind of a funny story about he had to go get some dental work and had to go to the dentist in his makeup and scared people, which kind of reminds me. I think it was is it Paul Ehlers in Mad Men had to go to the hospital. His wife was having a baby and he was dressed as Madman Mars. So I wonder if some other people have been whose famous killers have ended up at the in strange places. Because I know. I wonder if
Susie's ever had to go to the emergency room in her full goth makeup.
Well, I doubt they'd be able to get Toya in with that hair. Can you imagine sort of trying to on a especially that one in that Thunder Up Your Valley, or whatever it's called.
Thunder in the Mountains.
Oh right, okay. The only other thing, well, there's loads, as you know. I mean, if you're a Freddy or a Friday the 13th fan, as Joseph said, there's a gazillion things out there, from books to documentaries to this, that, and the other. So, and so we don't tend to go into massive amount of background on these movies purely for that fact. But one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting or odd was, I think Catherine Isabel was supposed to be playing a different character, whose eventually that character got deleted, I think, from the script, but she ended up playing the kind of stoner chick, who felt like she was bullied into doing nudity, although in the end she didn't do it. And there's a shower scene where she doesn't. It's a body double in there. Apparently, that caused frictions on the set between her and Ronnie Yu, but she's still acting, isn't she? I mean, I saw her in Hannibal not that long ago, and I looked at her. She's got something like 150 credits, so she's still going strong. I thought Monica Keena was actually pretty good in her role. I thought she was, she worked. I thought she kind of carried the film, and I think if they had someone more insipid in the role, it would have suffered for it. She does have to say that awful line, Freddy versus Jason, place your bets, which was cut from the final film but still in the trailer. Right, which is I thought was a hideous misstep to include that line even in the trailer. Yeah. It's just cringy. Yeah. One last thing I was going to say, and I don't whether this is true, I don't know, but it's one of the things I uncovered through extensive research onto IMDb and Wikipedia was that Rob Zombie was originally approached to direct.
I read that, yes.
But he instead went to work on House of a Thousand Corpses. So who knows what Freddy vs. Jason would have been like with Rob Zombie at the helm. And of course he went on to do such a sterling bang-up job on Halloween.
Probably Camp Crystal Lake probably would have been a trailer park or something.
Yeah. Monica Keena would have just gone around swearing all the time and looking depressed.
Yeah. So that's all the background I have on Freddy vs. Jason. So Joseph, have you got the feedback from the forums?
Oh God, this is going to take forever.
I'll go make a cup of tea.
Here we go. Scott Crawford says, it's a fun popcorn movie that really did a disservice to Freddy. What? He got more screen time. He got more, I think it did a disservice to Jason. He says, come on, he only gets one kill the whole runtime. Well, I guess I can see where he's coming from there. Donna Nelly says, the perfect mashup between two distinct and vastly different franchises. Putting Jason in the Nightmare on Elm Street universe is really exciting. Both stars get plenty of time to shine, and the violent, gore-soaked bloodbath finale is better than anything in either franchise. One of my all-time favorite horror films in general. Matt Taft says, as bad as it was, sadly the other drafts were even worse. Stephen Taylor says, I'm much more of a Friday the 13th fan than a Nightmare fan, and this totally just felt like another Freddy film to me, with Jason wandering in and out every so often. Saying that, though, it kept me entertained for the most part, and I didn't mind Ken Kersinger's take on Jason. I could definitely do without Beyonce's sister, or whatever her name is, though. She is to Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street what Busta Rhymes is to Halloween. Seriously.
That's harsh. That's harsh.
P.S. The main girl had a nice rack. I hope Joseph agrees. Yeah, it's not bad, I guess. Melissa Rogers says, I should give it another go. Haven't seen it since it was in theaters. Brad Yasuda says, we waited years for this. The most memorable thing about it for me was that there was a noticeable hole in the screen which caught my interest for most of the movie. Robert Englund was still entertaining, but I missed Kane Hodder. The leads were somewhat bland, and any interesting characters bought it early. It felt like there were too many cooks in the kitchen and no one ready to serve it fast. Still better than Jason Goes to Hell, though. Josh Turlick says, I love Freddy vs. Jason. It's popcorn horror and it knows it. The question is it a Friday the 13th or an Elm Street installment? And let's see. Patrick Hamilton says it's a serviceable Frankenstein versus Wolfman style mashup, but I don't feel like it treats either of the franchises all that well. And some of the character beats, in quotation, what kind of a blank, 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 where's a Christmas sweater, are just terrible. Dan Dominguez says, saw this opening weekend during the summer East Coast blackout of 2003. Really hated it. Couldn't understand what everyone was raving about. Went back to the theater to watch it again a couple of weeks later. There had to be something I was missing. Maybe I wasn't in the right frame of mind the first time. Maybe the stress of the blackout clouded my judgment. Nope. Hated it all over again. I mean, I get it. It's Freddy versus Jason, not high art. Not the climax of some grand artistic journey. But did it have to be so glib, so pandering, so obviously silly? I guess the filmmakers thought no one really cared. Make it louder, grosser, and dumber. Just reduce both killers and protagonists, Kelly Rowland, I'm looking at you, to pumped up carnival freaks with zero humanity, and the kids will love it. I guess some did, but it's probably worst of both series in my book, and that's saying a lot considering the travesties of Jason Takes Manhattan and Freddy's Dead. John Matthews says, I love this entry. I recall seeing this movie, funny enough, with all people, my dad. My dad is a big genre fan, and he really wanted to see this movie, even though he was in his 50s at the time, and we were in a theater of teenagers. My expectations were met. I had a blast in the cinema. The kills are fantastically graphic. It has a wicked sense of humor, and is what New Nightmare and Jason Goes to Hell wasn't, which was fun. Ronnie Yu makes use of his previous Asian cinema skills in presenting brilliantly choreographed fight scenes right out of a Jet Li film. Looking back now, this film looks like Citizen Kane compared to the Elm Street remake. Go Team Freddy. Let's see. Willie Greer says, fun in a way the post-Part 6 films were so often not. Okay. Elias Vasquez says, definitely better than the last 4 movies in both of the respective franchises canon. Except for Jason X, of course. LOL. I really like the Jason murder scene more than the Freddy scenes. My gripes are with its length and how shitty most of the cast is. It's like they wanted to cast super hip modern actors and forgot to get any personality. I really like the gore, though. Martin Luther Presley says, loved it, hated it, loved it again, then lukewarm, now accepting it for what it is and rather enjoying it. Spendejo says, I thought it was pretty forgettable. Not quite sure what it was, but it seemed like a well-produced, mediocre horror movie. In other words, they did a really good job of phoning it in. Duncan Maitland says, I was surprised by how enjoyable I found it when I saw it in the cinema at the time of release. A great fun ride, and Jason's killing of Kelly Rowland's character after her big splurge of Tood was the icing on the cake that nearly had me standing and applauding. However, seeing it on DVD a couple of years later was the complete opposite, and I found myself wondering if I was watching the same movie. Desperately dull. Never mind, I still have my memories. David Ladd says, I went to this one on opening day and I loved it. The movie isn't perfect, but considering some of the story treatments and alternate scripts I've read over the years, this is definitely the best version that was put to film. John Blasek says, loved it. Never felt so pumped watching a movie at the cinema. The crowd participation was through the roof for this one. It almost felt like being at a boxing match. Totally lived up to expectations. I wanted to see these slasher heavyweights fight, and that's exactly what I got. Yes, the characters are stereotypical and it is riddled with tropes and genre cliches, but it knows it and revels in it. I mean, it's called Freddy versus Jason, for fuck's sake. Those looking for rich character development and a thought-provoking plot should look elsewhere. Ron Burgundy, I'm Ron Burgundy, says, if this movie was a bowel movement, it would be a 2-hour dribbling shit. That's, wow, Ron Burgundy.
That's one for the Blu-ray box.
Yeah, Ron Burgundy's kind of pissed off at that. Gary Yoon says, Gareth has his say under yet another Facebook name. Oh, Gareth, you and your ever-changing names. The name of this film alone was enough to entice me. The idea of putting 2 horror icons against each other harks back to the likes of those films where Dracula met Frankenstein, etc. Ronnie Yu directing was also a plus, as I had viewed and enjoyed a lot of his Hong Kong films. When I finally saw it, I wasn't disappointed. Yes, it was very silly, and putting the 2 characters together was like trying to put a puzzle together with the pieces from 2 different puzzles, but I guess I always expected fun nonsense. And it's not like the first 2 it's not like the 2 film series are known as high art. This is one I'm happy to revisit every couple of years, but given that the sequel But given that the sequel I expected didn't ever materialize, I think maybe I'm in the minority. Erik Kirkstein says, all right, not sure it could have been any better. Matt Mentor says, saw this in the theater with friends. Our initial thoughts were, whoa, this movie is really violent. Even the opening credits are violent. I like that Elm Street was a reasonable walking distance from Crystal Lake. Jason's first kill with a dude in the bed got a round of applause. I also enjoyed seeing how happy Jason was getting to kill an endless round of teens at the field party. There seems to be some debate, but I thought Jason was the clear winner. Ara Alishen says serviceable, but fails to recapture the magic of either franchise, and that's really saying something coming from a staunch defender of Jason Takes Manhattan. Robert Trippett says made by someone who gave zero shits about either of these characters, and it shows. But after decades of hype, could anything have possibly lived up? And let's be honest with ourselves, Freddy and Jason don't belong together. It's tacos in your milkshake. Chris, that's
tacos in my milkshake.
Sounds kind of gross, actually. Chris Thompson says, was hoping for something that spent equal time on story and fanboy service, a narrative that took both killers' MOs seriously and used them well within a smart narrative that actually respected both franchise canons. But nope, we got cartoon characters, a third-rate, overly familiar sleep drug storyline, and lowest common denominator WWE nonsense between Freddy and Jason instead. After all these years and all those drafts, this is what they came up with. Dave Rendon says took the day off to see it. Jake McCoy says loved it. Well, worth the wait we fans had to go through. Plus, it introduced me to Catherine Isabel, which is a major plus. Matt Hume says I honestly enjoyed it. Ollie Onions. Wow, that's a cool name. Ollie Onions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude. Love it when I'm drunk as. I don't know what he's talking about, but he is Ollie Onions, so I'll give him that. Asia Ramey says, I was hoping for a better film considering how long fans had to wait. And finally, Freddy Torres says he loves it. But, okay, there's a couple more from Twitter here. Russell Hillman says, I like it. Compared to some of the other scripts they could have made, it turned out well enough. One of the better looks for Jason, too, though it's a shame it wasn't Kane Hodder. And Lesser of Two Equals says, dumb, flawed, but ultimately fun. And that is the feedback for Freddy versus Jason. Wow, that was quite a lot.
Compared to some of the feedbacks we've had on, say, Madhouse last episode. You can see which buttons we're pushing. So, well, thank you to everyone who fed back. That was fantastic. Well, let's play how to get in contact with the show, and this is exactly how you do it.
The content of this podcast was provided by Justin Kurzweil, Eric Frillfall, Nathan Johnson, and Joseph Henson. If you enjoy our program and are willing and able to provide a donation, please visit us on Patreon and become a content-designated subscriber. That's patreon.com/The Hysteria Continues. For non-subscriber PayPal donations and general feedback, our address is the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com. To listen and interact, simply search for The Hysteria Continues on iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Susie versus Toya forever.
Yes, and thank you to everyone who's contacted. We normally get stuff through the Facebook forums or through Twitter, but if you do want to email or send us a voicemail, then you're very, very welcome to do so. Also, thank you to all our Patreon and new Patreon supporters. We've got a little flurry of sign-ups, and so we're very grateful for that, and I hope you enjoyed the Drunk Cast, although we didn't get any votes on who won, who was the best song. Either the beautiful dulcet tones of myself and Nathan's beautiful English country rose, or the caterwauling of the
awesome rock sounds of the Twisted Hysteria.
Well, if you do want to catch that, then all you need to do is sign up to the Patreon as little as $1 a month, and we'd be very grateful to have you aboard. So, do we want to do... well, Nathan, would you like to do an after the credits before we get to Eric's joke of the week?
I would like to do an after the credits.
Okay.
Don't press stop. Shut up. After the credits show.
Okay, well, obviously we know that the movie ends with Jason carrying Freddy's winking head.
That's winking.
It winks.
It winks, Justin, just to clarify.
Oh, okay, thank you. I did wonder.
Yeah, there's a wink at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think that what happened is Jason remained at Camp Crystal Lake. Freddy went back to people's dreams, and we got some really good Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street sequels. And that's in my fantasy because that's not what really happened. But that's what I'd wanted to have happened. What about you, Justin?
Well, I was thinking about it. I kept on thinking there'd have to be something smutty you could do about Freddy's head. So maybe what I thought could happen is RuPaul could walk on at the end and just ask Freddy how his head is. And he'd say, "I had no complaints."
How rude. That's it, Nathan.
That's it.
Oh, okay. I was waiting to see if you were going to add more to it. Okay.
I think that was
Erik.
a happy finish.
Yeah, very happy ending. I know you like happy endings.
We all do.
Well, I believe the sequel is going to be Freddy versus Jason versus Pinhead versus Crinoline Head versus Ash versus Madman Mars versus the guy from I Believe Valentine versus the Prowler, and it's all going to star Beyonce Knowles and Michelle, whatever her name is.
Quan.
Yeah.
Joseph.
I think both characters just went on to do two really, really, really crappy reboots.
One was crappier than the other. But
yes,
which one?
Which one?
You'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But it rhymes with Shitmare on Melm Street.
Shitmare. That should be how you advertise it when we do the remake. Shitmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
I've still never seen it, so I'm going to wait until we cover that.
Oh, that'll be fun.
It is beyond awful. It's not as bad as the Halloween remake, in fairness. But
okay.
Hey,
Precious Little
is the Prom Night remake as bad as the Halloween one?
No.
Okay.
It's not as
wanting to watch it.
It's not as shrill. It's just very, very bland.
Yeah. It's like a rice cake of a movie.
I like rice cakes.
I know you do, you spa.
The what?
Nothing. Rice cakes are so boring.
Well, have you ever had the ones with dark chocolate?
Yeah, I like them with chocolate on top, but that's kind of cheating.
Well,
everything tastes good with chocolate on it.
You can get
there's I know you remember this, Joseph, but I got to go into The Simpsons for just a second. But there's a funny episode where Marge tells Homer he needs to eat rice cakes to lose weight, and they're like 35 calories, and Homer eats one. He's like, "Hello, taste. Are you there?" And Marge goes, "You could put a little something on top for flavor." And later he comes through and like it's stacked, like huge. And Homer goes, "Only 35 calories."
Yeah.
Have you had the Marmite ones, Erik? Do you like Marmite?
No, I've never heard of Marmite rice cakes.
They're quite nice. Do you like Marmite?
I'll try them. Yep, I do.
God, this is scintillating.
Yes, scintillating.
Well, let's head on to head off from that to I think you know what's coming next, Erik.
Yeah.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
So why is Freddy versus Jason such a pile of shite? Because it was directed by a runny poo. Runny you. It was very last minute. Give me a break.
Yeah, but the last time we recorded one, you had a last minute joke, and it was really good. What was it? Now I can't remember what it was.
It was that good.
If you can't remember it.
it was a real keeper.
No, it was during the drunk cast. That's why I can't remember it that well, because I was drunk. Yeah. But he had like a last minute one for the drunk cast.
Yeah, I know what it is. But you have to pay to listen to it. You
have to pay to listen to that joke.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Erik, as high class as ever. Talking of Patreon and Drunkcast, we're not doing a Drunkcast next time, but have we announced what the next Patreon pick will be?
We did.
Yes, we did.
We did.
Okay.
So they don't know. If you haven't paid to listen, then you don't know. But it's Nathan's pick, isn't it?
Yes.
Hold on to that.
It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful film, and everybody should pay to listen to our thoughts on Evils of the Night.
Ooh. I've never seen it.
I cannot wait to hear Erik's opinion. I'm very excited because he hasn't seen it.
Have you seen it, Justin?
Yeah, it's like the Citizen Kane of horror movies.
It's very Nathan, is it?
It couldn't be more, Nathan. Apart from
Okay.
well, it could if it had been shot on video, but as it's from 1982, then it's I think it was shot on film. But it's
Eric, you are going to love the fashion and the hair in this movie.
Okay, well that might tide me over. Yeah.
So I'm surprised actually that you wanted to do that one, Nathan, because it's quite a bit of a sci-fi feel to it as well.
Well, yeah, but the sci-fi stuff is so unbelievably cheesy, and there's still a lot of slasher type action in it that I thought, yeah, I can go for this. Plus, I mean, it is such an awful movie, but it's so funny.
Okay, well, you have to join up to the Patreon to hear all about Nathan's pick. But what are we doing next time?
Next time we are covering A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master.
Indeed, and we're
hoping... it was just coincidence that the two Freddys have come back to back, or misses.
And we're hoping to have an extra special guest on.
Yes, we are, yeah. I'm just waiting for confirmation from the special guest.
Exactly, yes. So, join us next time on the Hysteria Continues. And what are we playing out with, Joseph?
This is We Were Electrocute by Typo Negative. It's from the Freddy vs. Jason soundtrack.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for listening to Hysteria Continues. Hope you've enjoyed this trip to Springwood Springwood. I always get mixed up. Springwood. And
it is Springwood, yeah.
Yeah. So, join us next time back in Springwood. Say goodbye to the people. Say goodbye.
Ha 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 ha. That's a mix of Freddy and Jason out there.
And I'm ready for this jelly right now.